So now next chapter is people resistance against the British company 1857. So before, what is the resistance against the British? Most of think like 1857 revolt as a first major show of resentment against British, who were represented by rule of East India Company. But 1857 revolts that indicated all was not well and that there was building resentment against alien rule. And this resentment manifested itself in several bouts of resistance by different groups. So in this context, people encompasses several sections of Indian society like peasant, artisan, tribal, ruling class, and company, as well as the demobilized soldier, ex-ruler, religious leader, fought for the protection of their interests. At the time separately and at the time together, the agitation in Benares in 1810 against a house tax imposed by the colonial government, the Surat Riot in 1840 against the salt duty, and by rising in the Bareilly against the police tax and municipal tax are some example of urban movement in which people from lower strata like artisan, petty shopkeepers, and urban poor fought together with the prosperous urban gentry. And the interest of these resistance differed in the sense that each section different grievance. So a common objective is to end the British rule. And according to the Bipin Chandra, this was According to the Bipin Chandra, this was the involved Indian employee of company is forced to make the study of people resistance more comprehensive. And in this genesis of the people resistance, high land revenue was the reason, corrupt practices, hard attitude to the official being some of institution factor. However, established colonial rule and its policy had a much more annihilative effects on the Indian as a whole, and there was no one to near grievance or pay attention of their problem. The company was merely interested in extracting the revenue. So the colonial and judiciary safeguard the interest of the government and its collaboration to landlord, merchant, and money lender, and thus the people left with no options and take up arms and defend themselves. So the causative factor for the people in the uprising is the colonial land revenue settlement, a heavy burden on the taxes, eviction of peasants from their land, and encroachment of tribal lands, exploitation in rural society like intermediary revenue collection, tenants, and money lenders, expansion of revenue administration over tribal lands, leading to the loss of tribal people holds over agriculture and forest land, promotion of British manufactured goods, heavy duty on the Indian industry, export duty leading to the devastating Indian handloom and handicrafts, and destruction of indigenous industry like agriculture, increasing pressure on lands. Now second one is the civil uprising. Civil uprising is comprises the everything which is not related to defend military, but there is those uprising which was generally led to depose native rural. So polygar jamidar holder on territory of Palayam consisting few village granted, mainly Nayaka, was the return of military service to tribute, and sometime by religious leader also, mass support generally track rent peasant, unemployed artisans, demobilized soldiers, and these center uprising as well power wildest class. Now, major cause for the civil uprising was, you can see that under the company rule, change in the economy, administration, and land revenue. So the ego of traditional jamidar and polygar was hurt due to the being sidelined in the rank of government officials, and the ruin of Indian handicraft industry due to the colonial policy impoverished a million of artisans, and misery for further compounded by the disappearance their traditional patron. Now the priestly classes instigated the hatred rebellion against the rule, and religious preachers and priest pandit and Molvi had been dependent on the traditional landed bureaucratic elites, and the foreign character of the British rule who always remain alien to the land and their contemptuous treatment. Okay, so the hmm, general characteristic of British uprising was the uprising in most cases represent common condition through separated in the time, and the semi-feudal leader of civil uprising backward-looking tradition. An objective was to restore the early form of rule and social relations. So this uprising were the result of local curse and grievances and were also localized in the consequences. So What is the important civil uprising at that time? That's important. Like first is the Sannyasi Revolts. It was 1770 disaster, famine, harsh economic order. British compelled a group of sannyasi Eastern India, like in British York, originally peasant, even some evicted land. These sannyasi were jointly large number of dispossessed the small jamidar and the raided company factory and the treasury and fought for company force. It was only after prolonged action that Warren Hastings could subdue the sannyasi, and equal participation of Hindu and Muslim characterized the uprising sometime. So, in this revolt, Chodrani and Devi Pathak, important leader, and Devi Chodrani participation and women's role was a novel of Bankim Chattopadhyay is the based on the Sannyasi revolt, and Devi Chodrani as he saw importance of women. Next is the revolt in Midnapore and Dalboom. So English took hold Midnapore, an event of 3,000 Jamidar and Talukdar having cordial relationship with the Riots, but this harmonious scenario changed after the introduction of new land revenue system. And according to the British government, Vansittart, the Jamidar of Midnapore, sided with the Riots, and the Jamidar of Dalboom and Madboom Raipur, northwest Midnapore, were ultimately disposed in the Jamidar. Now, next is revolt of Momarias. Momarias revolt was in 1769, and the Midnapore revolt was 1766, and it's 1769. So it's Momaria low caste peasants who follow the teaching of the Aniruddha Deva, and their rise was similar to the low caste groups, and their revolts weakened the Ahom and opened the door for the other attack of region. So this is the book Burkha Darji's demoralized soldiers in the Muslim army and Jamidar revolted, and to crush these revolt, the Ahom rule had to request for the British help. Okay, so this was the rebellion. Now next one is the Baharich Rebellion. Warren Hastings, in order to meet the war expenses against the Maratha and Mysore, made a plan to earn money, involve English officer and Ijaredar. In the Awadh, he involved Major Alexander Henry, who was well equipped with reason, and Ijaredar. So Henry secured the Ijara Gorakhpur barrage to amount of 22 lakh rupees. So however, Henry opposition and excess demand of revenue made the region which has been the flourish. So Baharich and uh, nearby region is Gorakhpur is the Jamidari guerrilla force was there, and although the rebellion was suppressed. Now next is revolt of Raja Vijingaram. So the in 1758 a treaty was made between the English and the Anada Gajapati Raju, the ruler of the Vijingajam, to jointly oust the French from the North Sarkar. In this mission they were successful, but the English, as was usual in this case, and went back their word to honor the term of treaty. Anand Raju died before he could seriously tackle the English, and the East India Company went on the demanded tribute of 3 lakh rupees. Vijaya Ramaraju and the Raja Vijaya Ramaraju asked the disband this troop, and this angered of Raja were no due to the paid to the company. Okay, so Vijayanagarajam came under the company rule, and later company offered the estate to the deceased Raja. Revolt of Dundee and the Vednor. So after the conquest of Mysore, the English had to confront many revive. First is revolt of Raja Vijayanagar. It was English Anand, ruler of Vijayanagar, to jointly out French from the northern Sarkar missionary. So successful, but the English, as was usual in case of India, and Anand Raju died before could seriously tackle the English. So this was the Vijinga Raja Vijayaramaju and Vijingaram, a revolt of Raja Vijingaram was in the area of northern Sarkar against the English. And next one, revolt of Dundee and Vednor. So after conquest of Mysore, English had to conquer many native leaders. Dundee was a local Maratha, so his adventure got released with the fall of Seringapatanam, and Dundee organized a force which consists of anti-British elements, and a defeat by the English in August, and the Maratha region from where the instigated disappointed prince to fight against the English. Resistance of Kerala Varma Fajasi Raja. So Kerala Varma Fajasi Raja, popularly known the Kerala Simham, is a Saiki Raja, was the de facto head of Kottayam in the Malabar region. Apart from the registering Hyder Ali and the Tipu Sultan, Kerala Varma fought against the British, and the Third Anglo-Mysore War extended English paramountcy over the Kottayam, violation of earlier agreement. and reorganized the independence of Kottayam, and the English appointed Varma under the Fajasi Raja and the Raja Kottayam and the new Raja to meet the revenue targets fixed by the company. An exorbitant rates of tax on the peasant. This led to mass resistance by the peasants and fought bravely using the guerrilla warfare. Next is the civil rebellion in the Awadh. So Wazir Ali Khan was the Nawab of Awadh with the help of British had ascended the throne, and but very soon his relation British become sore. So Maskar of Banaras in the Wazir Ali was able to assemble the army of several thousand men defeated by General Erskine, and Wazir Ali fled to Butwal and granted asylum by the rule of Jaipur. Arthur Wellesley requested Raja Jaipur to extradite Wazir Ali, but extradition on the condition that would neither be hanged nor be put in fetter. So surrender in December. Okay, so this was the civil rebellion in the Awadh. And next is in the Awadh there was a Wazir Ali and Arthur Wellesley. So he wanted to either extradite or to not to go for the fetter or not to hang for that. So it's a massacre of Banaras in the civilian of Awadh. Okay, and now is uprising in the Ganjam and Gumsur. It's 1800. So northern Sarkar and Ganjam and adjoining region rose in revolts against the British. And Stri Kala Bhanj, a Jamidar of Gumsur, Ganjam district, refused to pay the revenue, and he openly rebelled and defied the public authority, an oppressive and corrupt collector. So it's a Stri Kara was joined by the Dio of Vijinga and Jagannath Dio Pratapgiri. So Jagannath Dio was captured and sent to the Masulipatnam. So this was the uprising Ganjam and Gumso uprising in Palamau. Palamau's political situation of Palamau was conflicted by the crisis of agrarian landlords and feudal system. So Bukhan Singh was there. Now Polygamy Revolt. The Polygamy Revolts was South India gave a stiff resistance to the British. It's a Tinevali, Thirunelveli, and Ramanathapuram, Shivanganam, Shivagiri, and Madurai North Airport problem started, and when the Nawab Arcot gave the management and control of Tirunelveli and the Karnataka province East India Company, this arrangement caused the resentment among the Polygar who had long considered themselves for sovereign. Now it's Katta Boman Nayakan. The Polygar of Panjala Kurichi led the insurrection between the after a fierce battle in which the company force was defeated by Veerapandiya Kota Boman. A price was put on the letterhead. This led to great rebellion by the Polygar. With reinforcement, the company force were finally able to defeat the Kota Boman. So it's a Puddukkottai forest once again, and this was the Etapam, the Raja of Puddukottai, who Kotaboman was hanged conspicuously in the place. So this was the Kotabomam Naika. It's not that much important. We should have normal understanding. Uprising of Bhiwani. It was Haryana broke in rebellion. This Jat fortified themselves Bhiwani and made a strong resistance against the British power. Diwan Veluthampi revolts. It's a East Indian Company harsh condition imposed on the state of Travancore. So they agreed to subsidiary alliance arrangement under the Wellesley, caused deep recession, repercussion, and the British resistance of Travancore was meddling in the internal affair of the state, and attitude of the company compelled Prime Minister Veluthampi to rise against the company resistant near troops. So there is the Kundara Proclamation in this, and this large-scale rebellion against the British and a large military operation had to be undertaken to restore the peace. So it's Travancore not only supported the rebellion and defeated to the side of company. Disturbance in the Bundelkhan. The vast province of the Bundelkhan conquered by the British during the Second Anglo-Maratha War was put within the presidency of Bengal, and the Bundela chief offered resistance to the new government as long as could fight from the front of numbering region or 150. The Kiladar of the Ajaygarh for Lakshman Gand and but wanted to continue his hold and taken the Calcutta, and the next resistance came from the Kiladar Kalanjar Darya Singh, which was supposed to be January. Next is the Parla Kimedi outbreak. Parla Kimedi situation in the western border of the Ganjam district witnessed resistance from the Jamidar and Raja when the company acquired Ganjam. Narayan Dev was the dispatch of army, and Colonel Peach defeated Narayan Dev and met Gajpati Dev, proclaimed the Jamidar, but Narayan Dev, supported by his son and brother, revolted against and the resistance failed to calm down. Kutch Rebellion. There is a treaty between the British and Maharaja Baharamal II, which power of vested in the throne. There was, however, a power struggle between the Maharaja and the group of chief men, and the British interfered in the internal feud. Kutch and Raja Barmal II raised Arab African troops. So it's a British defeated and deposed the Kutch rule over the Rao Baramal in favor of the infant son. So Kutch rebellion was the rising of Bareilly, so cause of upsurge in imposition of the police tax, which was turned indignation of the citizen. Issue became the religious when Mufti Muhammad Awadh, a ventured old man, gave a petition to the magistrate. The situation aggravated further when the police, while collecting tax, injured a woman. This led to bloody scuffle between the follower of the Mufti and the police. Upsurge in the Hathras, though a talukdar of several villages in the district of Aligarh, had a strong base, and the fort, considered to be the among the strongest in India. Second, Bharatpur had wall of great height and thickness, defended by the deep ditch and artillery mounted at the top, and the English had concluded the settlement of Hathras again. And the Yaram constantly failed to pay the arrear and even committed many acts of hostility by the giving harbour to government fugitives. So the company with the large army attacked the Hathras and fought bravely. Paika rebellion in Odisha was traditional landed militia foot soldiers and enjoyed rent-free tenure for their military service, policing function, hereditary based. English company conquers Odisha, and the dethronement of the Raja Khurda has greatly reduced the power and prestige of Paika. An extortionist land revenue policy, resentment among the peasants alike, common masses affected by the rise of prices, and payment of abolition of Kauri currency, and requirement of payment of tax. So this is the chief of force Raja Khurda, Jagannath ancestral estate Kila, and was company reducing him to the penury. The spark was lightened by the arrival of body of Khond from Gumsur into Khurda territory, and with active support of Mukunda Deva, the last Raja of Khurda, and other Jamidar of the region. Bakshi Jagannath Vidya led the Sundri army Paika, forcing the East India Company. The rebellion came to be known as the Paika, and the initial success of the rebels set the whole province covering the Odisha in arm against the British government, and Jagbandhu declared an outlay along with the rebel was shattered by the Raja of Nayagarh. So it was the Puri temple who had sheltered Jagannath Guru and was fought for the hang. So Paikal was who suffered from greatly. Now Vaghera Rising was the Gaikwad and Baroda supported the British government. So Vaghera chief Okha Mandal to take up the arms, and Vaghera carried Wu inward into the British territory. Ahom revolt was the withdrawal of Assam after the Burma War, but after the war, instead of territory of company domination, this is spark of the rebellion under the leadership of Gomdar Konwar and Ahom prince, along with the compatriots such as like Ahom was also against the British. Now Surat salt agitation was the anti-British resulted attack by the local Surat population in the European or the issue of government step to raise the salt duty from the 15 paise. Okay, so it was the government was forced to withdraw into its measure to introduce the Bengal standard weight and measure phase. Kolhapur and Sawantwadi revolt, the Gadkari were hereditary military class which was garrison in the Maratha fort, and the garrison were disbanded during the administrative reorganization. Kolhapur state, after facing the spectre unemployment, Godkari rose revolt, and Samgad and Budargad fort. Similarly, simmering discontent revolt in the Sawantwadi area. So it was Kolhapur revolt. Now Wahhabi movement. Wahhabi movement essentially Islamic realist movement founded Syed Ahmed of Raebareli. So inspired by teaching of Abdul Wahhab of Saudi Arabia and Shah Waliullah of Delhi, Syed Ahmed condemned the Western influence on Islam and advocated return to the pure Islam and society as it was the Arabia of the Prophet time. So Wahhabi movement is essentially the Islamic revivalist movement, countrywide organization with the elaborate secret code for its working under the spiritual, and was set up, and Sithana in the northwest was chosen as the base for the operation. So its important center was Patna and Hyderabad, Madras, Bengal, United Province, Bombay, and Sindh. Darul Harb was to be conveyed into the Darul Islam. A jihad was declared against the Sikh. And after the defeat of Sikh ruler and incarnation of Punjab into the East India Company, the English domination in India came become the target of Wahhabi. Kuka movement was found Bhagat Jawaharlal in western Punjab, and major leader of the movement after him was Baba Ram Singh, and British took Punjab, and the movement got transformed from a religious purification and a campaign, a political campaign. Its basis tenets were abolition of caste and similar discrimination among Sikh, and discouragement the consumption of meats and alcohol, drugs, and it's on the political side. The Kuka wanted to remove the British and restore the Sikh rule Punjab. They advocated wearing the hand-woven clothes and boycott the English law and education. So the concept of Swadeshi non-cooperation was propagated Kuka much before they become part of the Indian national movement. And as the movement gained popularity, the British took several steps to crush the periods between this. Now, peasant uprising. So it's important now. See, Nar Kel Beria uprising. It's a Nithar Ali and Titu Mir for the teenage West Bengal to rise against landlord, mainly Hindu, who imposed the board tax, and Farajis, British indigo planter, and considered first armed peasant uprising against the British. It's a Narkel Beria uprising. Okay, so took on the religious hue. And Wahhabi movement. The Pagalpanthi, it's a Hajong and Garo tribes of the Karamsha, so it in the earlier Bengal, so but the tribal peasant organized themselves under the Karamsha and Tipu to fight the operation of Jamidar, and it's Pagalpanthi for the above. It's a Karamsha and the who is there Karamsha, and the it's a Garo tribe and Hajong tribe in Bengal, and Jamidar. The government introduced the equitable arrangement to protect the peasants. Now next